As well as all the people on holiday enjoying themselves, and their dogs and the seaside ponies and donkeys, there's a lot of other living things on the seashore, if you know where to look for them. Let's have a look at some of the common animals on the shore. There's a very big shore crab. He goes off to hide under the rock when he's disturbed. I didn't fancy trying to pull him out, but there are other crabs under the stones at low tide. Let's see if we can find one. Here we are. This is another shore crab, but it's a younger one, not quite so big. The body's protected by a suit of armour plate. Crabs have 10 limbs, 4 legs on each side, and 2 big claws at the front. There's a good view of one claw, and you can see its 2 eyes sticking out. Shore crabs are dark-coloured, usually a sort of dark green, but you can best tell a shore crab by looking at the bit sticking out from the front of the big flat shell on top, called a carapace. Shore crabs have 3 blunt projections between their eyes, and 5 sharper bits sticking out like teeth at each side. You see them? Crabs take in seawater under their carapace and extract the dissolved oxygen out of it using their gills, which are hidden under the shell. Then they get rid of the water by passing it out from a space near their mouths. Watch this one get rid of some of the water it's taken in under its shell. It's getting a bit cross, I think, but it's not big enough to give me a really hard nip. This curled over part underneath is called a crab's tail. Male shore crabs have 5 joints to their tails. This one's got 7, so it must be a female. I put it back under a stone so that it's safe from its enemies. Always replace things carefully after you've had a good look at them. Now let's see what else there is in these pools left after the tide's gone out. There's a fish there, and what's this? A shellfish of some kind? It looks as if there's something twitching, sticking out from the shell. It can't be a shellfish. No, it certainly isn't. It's moving far too fast. Believe it or not, this is another common kind of crab. It doesn't have its own shell to protect it. It lives inside the empty shell of another creature that's died, and it stays inside the shell if there's any danger. Here's another. They're called hermit crabs. They live inside their shells like old-time hermits used to live in their caves. But leave them alone, and slowly they come out. Watch. One of their claws is much bigger than the other, and they have 8 legs, 10 limbs like all crabs. If you want to see them, keep very still so that you don't frighten them back in again. Off it goes. See the 2 light-coloured eyes sticking out? Watch this hermit crab in a sandy pool. If you disturb the water, or make any movement above it, in it pops again. Hermit crabs live inside empty shells left by all sorts of different shellfish. This little one's inside what's called a top shell. Watch what happens if I frighten it with my hand. Crabs will eat almost anything that comes their way. Watch this hermit crab feeding itself. See it using its claws? As they feed, they grow. Here are 4 hermit crabs, 4 different sizes, each living inside a shell that just fits. When a hermit crab gets too big for its shell, it looks for another bigger one that's empty and ready to move into. This one's sizing up another shell to see if it will make a nice, roomier new home for it. But the other shell's already occupied, and it looks as if there's going to be trouble. No, they've decided not to make a fight of it. What does an ordinary crab, like a shore crab, for instance, do when it grows? It's got its own shell. What does it do when that shell gets too tight for it? The answer is that it molts. It casts its own shell, then grows a new one. You'll often find empty carapaces quite undamaged on the shore. Here's one. This is actually the carapace of an edible crab, the kind you eat, not a shore crab. It's got differently shaped projections between where the eyes would be, and 10 round projections at each side, again, not like the shore crab. It's a lovely colour underneath, all clean and shiny. This is the cast-off shell of a crab that grew too big for it. What do you think crabs need their armour for? Well, they've got enemies on the shore. Here are some of their enemies. Gulls. This is a herring gull, perhaps the commonest kind of gull you'll see at the seaside. It's grey and white with black and white wingtips. It's got a very powerful yellow bill with a red spot at the tip, and it's a very greedy bird. Herring gulls will eat almost anything, dead or alive, and crabs do very nicely. So if a hermit crab caught out in the open sees any slight movement, it quickly vanishes inside its shell in case it's a hungry herring gull. And in the daytime, when the tide's out, shore crabs try to hide under stones and rock ledges where the enemy can't see them. They avoid open, sandy beaches with no shelter. If they do get caught out, they bury themselves to escape from the watchful eyes of the hungry gulls. You'll find herring gulls on most seashores all the year round. They even come inland, away from the sea in some places, especially in winter. Now, these may look like a quite different kind of gull, but in fact they're still herring gulls. They're young ones with a streaky plumage. Young birds are often quite different looking from the adult grown-up bird. It'll be a year or 2 before these get their adult plumage and look as clean and handsome as the older herring gulls. This one's having a drink from a little stream that runs down the beach into the sea. There's a juvenile again, a young gull. All gulls spend a lot of their time on the sea, and their plumage has to be pretty waterproof, or else they would get waterlogged, so wet that they could hardly float, let alone take off and fly. They waterproof their feathers by picking up an oil on their beaks, which is produced by glands near their tails, and rubbing this on their plumage. That's what this adult herring gull is doing. They must do this regularly to keep their feathers waterproof. If you look carefully, you'll probably see other kinds of gull amongst the herring gulls. Do you see that bigger one with black wings in the centre there? That's a blackback gull, the greater blackback gull. They're even greedier creatures than the herring gulls, and they'll eat practically anything they can grab and tear to pieces. They're not actually black-backed. If you watch one in flight, you'll see that it's the top surface of the wings which is black. Herring gulls and blackback gulls are powerful flyers, and you can watch them battling with the wind over the sea, even on very rough days. So now we've seen herring gulls and a greater blackback gull. There's another very common kind of gull that's worth looking out for. Here's one. This is a black-headed gull. In summer it has a dark chocolate-coloured mask over its face. It's not actually black. By August this mask's fading a bit, as you can see. You'll often see black-headed gulls a long way from the sea, feeding in the fields among common land birds like this blackbird. Actually, this saltwater pool's quite near the shore, but you certainly don't have to be at the seaside to watch these gulls. In winter, the dark mask disappears, leaving just a few splodges on the side of its face, see? Now, do you remember this, the young herring gull looking very different from the grown-up? Well, the juvenile black-headed gull looks quite different from the older birds too. Here's one. It has a nice-looking black, brown and white pattern in its plumage. Black-headed gulls, grown-ups as well as the young ones, are smaller and lighter than herring gulls, and they have a more fluttering sort of flight. Watch this herring gull easily overtake a young black-headed gull. So you see, there's plenty to look out for at the seaside, as well as the waves and the rocks and the beaches. In this film, I've only shown you a very few of the things I like to look for on the seashore. The hermit crabs living inside their borrowed shells. The shore crabs all over the shore, if you know where to look for them. And some of the seabirds, the gulls, which aren't just seagulls but come in different kinds, all worth trying to spot for yourselves next time you go for a holiday beside the seaside.